Welcome into sportsbookreview.com. I'm Gary.
And I'm Chris.
And this is the College Football Show, number 16 for 2021. Lots to discuss this week. Before we get started, go ahead and give you an idea of what you need to be doing. Go to sbrpicks.com/NCAAF. There is a link in the description below. Go ahead and check that out for sure. On this video, like the video. That would certainly help things out. Go ahead and like it for us. It's the little thumbs up button. Do that. And on top of that, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. That way you can be notified. You hit that little bell next to it. I believe down below us there's a graphic that'll tell you, hit the bell. It'll notify you when we have a new video out. So we are getting ever closer to the actual season. When that happens, the number of videos are going to ramp up. A lot more topics to discuss. Fall camp is coming up in August. We have a lot to break down. So we got things that we are going to be doing. Just make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. If you have any comments or questions or anything, jump into the chat. We would love to hear that. Or not the chat. What's it called? The comment section.
Yeah.
Jump into the comment section. We would love to hear from you. You can also reach out to us if you're not big on the YouTube thing. If you just come over here to watch us, you can always reach out to us on Twitter. I am at Gary WCE.
I'm at Chris B. Giannini.
And if you don't do that either, you're not a tweeter, that's okay. You can always email us the old school way. I'm Gary at winningcureseverything.com.
And I'm Chris at winningcureseverything.com.
With that said, let's dive into the topics at hand. We had more spring football games last week. I know that this is Chris's favorite topic. If you have watched the last couple of weeks, obviously, Chris not a big fan of what goes on in spring ball. It's not that you're not a big fan of it. It's that you don't think it's really meaningful.
Yeah, I think it's useless to us. I don't think it's useless to teams, but I think watching it tells you nothing at all.
Well, I think that there were 4 games this week
that were important.
That you could get kind of an idea. Not important per se, but it kind of gives you an idea of what's been going on in spring practice. That's the biggest part of all this is you as a fan get to see what's going on with your team. So let's dive into the first one. Notre Dame, of course, you got the gold helmets, gold against white, whatever, green against white, whatever the hell they did this year. Wisconsin transfer Jack Cohn. That is what everybody's been watching.
Yes.
We're trying to figure out what's going on there. He is the presumptive starter. He was okay on Saturday. Didn't look great. He was 18 of 32 for 197 yards. No touchdowns, 1 interception. That's almost a mirror image of what he did at Wisconsin, right?
Well, I mean, but
he was good at Wisconsin.
He hasn't been there very long either. I mean,
right. He just got over there.
Got with this team.
Redshirt freshman Drew Pine, who is the assumed competition, I guess we could say. He went 11 for 23 for 146 yards, no touchdowns, and 1 interception. And the guy that nobody really thought about, incoming freshman Tyler Buckner, 4-star out of California, not bad. 6 out of 9 passes for 140 yards, rushed for a touchdown, was leading the drive that led to the other touchdown. Like, not bad. Not bad. So, Buckner was not seen as having a realistic shot at the job. Fans might be clamoring for it. I don't know that the spring game tells us a whole lot, but, he looked good.
I'm going to assume that Brian Kelly knows what he's doing.
I would think so as well.
Okay.
I would think so as well.
I just think that he's a really good football coach. He'll find the best quarterback for the team.
And they have a roster that is chock full of dudes.
That's right.
Like they do every year.
Yeah, they are very good at recruiting.
Yes, they are. And nobody seems to pay attention to that.
No, I think we do. I just think the chasm between them and the top 3 to 5 guys is a huge chasm, and so we don't give them credit. We like to throw out with them and Michigan and other teams, well, they have top 10 recruiting classes all the time, but there's a big difference between number 7 and number 4.
Yes.
I mean, you can drive a truck through it. It's so big.
No, you are 100% right about that. 100% right. We will move on and talk about another team that might need to temper expectations a little bit.
They're not going to temper expectations.
The Nebraska Cornhuskers. Quarterback Adrian Martinez looked solid. All right, 12 out of 20, 127 yards.
National championship, baby.
Dealt with a lot of drops from his wide receivers. I don't think that that's a huge surprise. The defense, everybody's been talking about that. As anybody that's around the program has talked about how good the defense looked. They certainly looked like it on Saturday against that Nebraska offense.
Against themselves, they look really good.
The issue
Can they stop Iowa?
Probably not.
Okay.
The issue there right now is middle linebacker Will Honus went down with an injury during practice early last week.
Yeah, you don't want to see injuries in the spring games.
Especially from a guy that was expected to be a team leader.
That's right.
And that's certainly not good. He was going to be kind of the quarterback of the defense. And we'll see what happens now.
So are they the black shirts again?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Don't think so. But either way, hopefully
they can
will
stop
get there.
Nebraska. But that's the problem is you don't have to stop Nebraska. You got to stop Wisconsin and Iowa.
They'll probably be able to stop Buffalo now that but we're going to get into that.
You got to stop Purdue. Yeah, these other schools that are better than you.
Yes.
You got to
yes,
stop
indeed.
them.
Yes, indeed. All right, we're going to move out west for just a bit, talk about a couple of Pac-12 teams. The Oregon Ducks, Mario Cristobal's team. Tyler Shuck, the starter at quarterback last year, has already transferred out. He has gone over to Texas Tech. Now we have Boston College transfer Anthony Brown, who has transferred in last season. He was the backup. Second year under Joe Moorhead. Everybody has talked about Ty Thompson, the incoming highly rated recruit. This is 100% Anthony Brown's team. 100%, not even close. If you want proof, you saw it Saturday. He took the vast majority of the snaps. Looked pretty good. They didn't really keep stats on it. But from what I was able to watch, looked all right. I didn't watch nearly as many spring games this weekend.
This is an offense that since Moorhead's gotten there, we feel like there's a level of consistency. We didn't really know how good Justin Herbert was coming out of Oregon because they didn't really use him well. Now we've got an OC that's been an OC at the biggest level of football.
And the second
he knows
season
what he's
with
doing.
Him,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is
right.
He's going to be able to pick this quarterback. I think he knows this offense. He knows what they need. There's just a level of trust there.
Very much so. I think this season, obviously, they actually got a spring practice this year, so that helps.
Yeah, I would say there's so much that went in since he's been there.
100%.
Trying to run that offense.
Moorhead's got a different kind of system that he runs anyway. We saw it under James Franklin at Penn State. Once it got rolling, it was great. But it took a little bit to actually get to that point for the players to become acclimated with it. And
I think Oregon's got enough talent to where you should be able to roll a system in pretty quickly. Yeah. The problem is you got to have practices to do that. Last year, they didn't have that luxury.
I mean, they were shut down for a large – what did they play, 5 games last year?
Yeah, they didn't play many. I don't know exactly how many, and I have no idea how many practices they got in before they had to start playing those games.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Absolutely
ridiculous.
So
I expect – this is an offense. I have expectations. I didn't need to watch the spring game to know, I don't know who the quarterback's going to be, but it doesn't matter. I have much better expectations of what this offense is going to look like because of a full off season.
I think they will look significantly better against other competition as opposed to their own defense because their defense has some dudes. Man,
yeah,
they have got guys.
I also understand they're not letting those guys go all out in the spring game.
Well, absolutely. Kayvon Thibodeau and Justin Flo are the 2 superstars. They're going to be highly rated in NFL guys. And Thibodeau's probably going to be a top 5 guy.
And those guys were not let loose during the spring game.
No, absolutely not. But they did look better in the spring game than the offense did.
Sure.
Even still, Anthony Brown, like this is his team. I am curious to see where Oregon goes next. So with that, let's do the Washington Huskies. Not surprisingly, a Jimmy Lake team. Defense is ahead of the offense. Last season starter Dylan Morris shared time with a big-time incoming recruit. That would be Sam Heward, who is Brock Heward's son. So obviously there's a little name recognition there in in Washington, excuse me. Sam made no dumb plays. Like, the whole game. He took what was given to him, looked really mature in the pocket. Like, it kind of strange to see that, especially from a freshman against a Jimmy Lake defense. Now, obviously, defense not going all out, but they are running things to try and confuse these guys to see what they can get out of them. And it is very possible, even with a returning starter at quarterback, that this kid, who's a big-time 5-star, could end up winning the job.
So I have a different philosophy. No, like I said, I don't put anything in the spring game. But if you're not taking chances in the spring game, then when the hell are you going to take chances?
That is true.
If you're like, this is the opportunity for you to try to see, can you make this throw or not? Can that receiver make that play or not? Can this work or not? Like, you're supposed to be trying stuff. And if you're doing everything as safe as possible in your spring game to where you listen, this is the old adage that show me a guy with no scars and I'll show you a guy that's lived no life. Like that's what that tells me, is that this kid's either going to play with his hands cuffed by the head coach or he's going to play afraid to make a mistake and be just too reserved by his own I guess lack of confidence or whatever it is.
Yes.
I don't want that guy leading my team. I'm not afraid of mistakes.
There's a third option here. Colorado State grad transfer quarterback Patrick O'Brien.
Do you think he really has a chance?
I think all of these guys have a chance. I think Heward really has a shot. Like, he's a big-time incoming guy.
You know my opinion on quarterbacks. I want you, especially in practice, you need to be taking chances.
Now
this is where we actually work on stuff.
If we're just looking at football overall, that's one thing. I'm curious about the booster culture at Washington. If we have any Pac-12 people listening, I want to know what you think, because obviously at Auburn, we felt like there were better quarterback options than Bo Nix.
That's right.
And somebody got in the ear of the head coach and said, you got to start this kid.
Yeah, Bo's going to play.
I wonder about Washington if they do the same thing.
Yeah, and we don't know the answer to that.
Yeah,
because we're not plugged in out there. We don't have any type of connections. I mean, we'll just see when we get out there, and the game film will tell us all we need to know.
If this was Chris Peterson as the head coach, he would do whatever is best for the football team.
Well, if it was Chris Peterson, I would just assume whatever he's doing is the right. It's the Brian Kelly attitude. I don't know who these guys are, but he knows them. He knows more than I'm ever going to know about these guys, and he's a genius at this stuff. I just trust that the guy he's starting is the best guy.
And Jimmy Lake, of course, first-time head coach. His first season, they go 3-1.
He's a defensive guy. Yeah. He's handing the offense to someone else. You're not necessarily putting I'm sure he's going to have an opinion.
Oh, absolutely.
But he's also given an opinion about something he's not an expert in.
Yes, that's 100%
Peterson
right.
is a bona fide expert in it.
Yes, he is. All right, let's move off of the spring games. Let's talk about something that happened last week, and that would be the Kansas Jayhawks hired Lance Leipold, the head coach at Buffalo. Leipold was 109-6 with 5 15-0 seasons and 6 national championships in 7 years at Wisconsin Whitewater in D3. Jumps up to Buffalo and ends up going 37-33 in 6 seasons. They went 6-1 last year. Never won the MAC under him. Got to multiple title games, but never won the MAC. The coach loved the challenge at Buffalo. They pulled, obviously, the national media has pulled up all sorts of quotes from back when he was hired, but he loved Buffalo because it was a blank slate. There were 0 expectations there. You are not going to find a P5 team with a more blank slate than Kansas. There are 0 expectations at Kansas. I think this is a perfect match. Like, I know that we both wanted to see the triple option in the P5.
Or just something. And it's not that I want to see that. It's I need Lance to show me that you can play this game straight up with the talent at Kansas.
But it's not – I do think Lance is looking at it philosophically different than everybody else in the Big 12, because obviously Jarrett Patterson broke a bunch of NCAA rushing records and all that.
Yeah, he's going to run the football, but Jarrett Patterson ran the football because he could run the football.
Right.
Like if anybody ever stopped them, if they ever played a defense that shut them down, he wasn't going to keep pounding the rock.
Agreed.
He was going to you're just not going to, and a lot of these defenses you can do that, but some of these defenses you're just not going to do that to. That means it's not, are you going to get beat? It's how bad. You're never going to pull the upset playing it straight up.
I think Leipold is smart enough to.
I hope so. I like him a lot.
To do something different.
My fear is this a place for him to go to hurt his reputation?
Now, obviously, before we started recording, it came out he is taking 7 assistant coaches
his whole
from
staff.
Buffalo. Yeah,
almost.
Typically, as you said,
I don't like that.
Yeah, we would look down on that. Except, I think as far as culture building, I think it's a smart move.
I don't know that it's the worst move you can make now.
Well, especially, I mean, we're in May at this point.
I was about to say it's going to be tough to. I think when it's happening it makes it hard, and so I don't fault it right now, but it's just one of those things where there's a reason those guys are coaching at Buffalo and not at a Power 5 school.
Agreed.
And so now you're thrusting a bunch of people that might not be qualified into jobs because you know them, you trust them, but it doesn't mean they're fit for the job.
Agreed.
And it just rarely works out. I can't think of a time where it's ever worked out, to be honest. But
agreed.
But neither here nor there.
With it happening in May, I think that this is the perfect time to figure it out. Yeah,
I want him to be successful. I just feel like Kansas is one of those places where if you play the game straight up, you're gonna get beat.
What is success at Kansas?
Man, I think you gotta start winning your non-cons. Okay,
Well, yeah.
But You say, yeah, that's a listen, bro. They haven't been winning their non-cons.
Agreed. But that's
you got to start winning non-cons. I need one win a year in conference for the first 2 years. I mean, that's low.
I'm looking at them going
low.
I'm looking at them going like 1-11 this season.
But hang on, you're gonna play 3 pay for wins. You can't.
But their pay for wins are not real. So like they're playing an FCS team, but it's South Dakota, who is pretty good. You're playing Coastal Carolina, like that's I talked about.
That's not a pay for win.
Yeah,
I guarantee you, there's no doubt Coastal Carolina is not getting a check for this trip.
Well, no, they're getting a check.
Are they?
Yes.
They got a check for the last 2. I don't know if they're getting a check for the third one. Which is fine. If I was Coastal, I'd still show up without the check and beat their brains in. At some point in time, when these contracts run out, you start bringing in teams you can beat.
Yes.
Like I hate it when LSU does it. I hate it when Auburn and Alabama do it. I have no problems with a team that's trying to crawl.
Yes.
Doing it. Because
I think
understand there's value. So, yeah, this coming season, because of the way the schedule. But after this season, you got to start breaking contracts. And you got to start bringing in the smallest of the smalls. I want them to be FBS schools. But, man, go call, I don't know, New Mexico. Go call somebody you can kick the crap out of.
New Mexico State.
And
give me some of those.
And let's bring them in. They'll take your check.
Yeah.
Those
do
are
not
FBS
call Liberty.
Wins. No.
Do not call like East Carolina right now.
Yes. Quit calling these places that are going to come in and beat your brains in.
Yes.
And let's get a couple of victories so the guys know what that feels like.
Yeah.
And give me one conference win a year. Find somebody on the schedule that you can beat, because every year there's going to be another school that's in the bottom feeder with you.
How about this? Could we say success would be a bowl game by year 4?
Yes, but I think that's crazy, because you're talking if you win 3 FBS games that you break out contracts and you get pay for wins. Now you're asking them to win 3 conference games. I don't know by year 4. I think that would be so over any expectation I would have would be insane.
In 4 years?
Yes,
really?
in 4 years. Because I don't think you can get talent there.
I think you can get enough, and if the culture is right, if the coaching is right, you can steal 3 wins in the Big 12. That mean they won 4 games, not this past year, but the year before with Les Miles.
I understand
and that. Was,
yeah, but he's notoriously just can pull magic out of a hat.
He didn't pull anything out of his hat last year. I mean,
but last year was a weird.
But that's what I'm saying.
Is it different? I don't care.
The talent has gone down, but I think they can get enough. And with coaching, I trust Lance Leipold to be able to get.
I
this
do
thing
trust
done.
Lance. Like I said, I think to get real success, to get 6 wins there, I think you got to play the game different, and you got to catch people off guard, and you got to show them something that nobody else is showing them.
I can get with that. I think that's why you bring in Leipold. I think that's why you do that.
Okay.
So culture building. Moving on, Florida legislature signed for the NIL to go into effect in July.
Yes, sir.
Now, this was after they discussed a delay. Now, check this out.
They were asked to delay it, and they said, we'll talk about it.
So here's the
thing.
And
they talked.
They passed a bill on Friday afternoon. It reinstates July as the start date.
At your ass.
Yes, for allowing college athletes to make money from endorsements, reversing a brief push to delay the new opportunities by a year. The state Senate passed an education bill on Wednesday that was largely unrelated to athletics, but included a last-minute surprise amendment to delay the implementation of the law until July 2022. Somebody was trying to pull some shenanigans.
Yeah. This is the NCAA instead of paying these kids. This isn't the
NCAA. This has nothing to do with the NCAA.
Yes, it does. They're giving money to lobbyists, and lobbyists are getting it to these senators.
Who do
you think's paying those senators? Who do you think?
Right.
Who do you think? Let's forget about paying. Okay, what lobbyists are fighting against this?
Only the ones that are buddies with
the
NCAA, I guess. Yeah,
they've sent their cronies out there to try to squash this.
That is interesting.
There's nobody else is invested in stopping this.
I don't know why they
didn't.
The
NCAA.
I don't know why they didn't do this in the other states, because Alabama passed one, Mississippi passed one.
Because I don't think they go into effect
California,
this soon. I think these go into effect first.
These are all going into effect in July 1.
And some of this, I'm learning this as I'm getting deeper into politics. Not every state meets all the time. Yep. Like the state of Maryland does business in the first quarter.
Yep.
And then they do no new business until next year, the first quarter. So if your state, Florida might be the only state operating with new business right now.
Yeah.
I should know more. Mississippi's new business. I don't know our way we're set up, or Alabama or California. I don't know any of those things.
I know
that some states only operate like every other year.
Right.
And it's for cost savings and stuff like that. They're not going to do new legislature every year. So
the majority of these states, the governor has the power to be able to write this in and do whatever he wants. So like Mississippi, Tate Reeves did that. In Alabama, Kay Ivey did that. Yes. So it wasn't anything that had to be met about.
But the state legislature, they have that authority because the state legislature only meets so often.
Yeah, that would make sense.
And they're only going to do so many different things. And that's, I think, I have no idea why. But I know that some states do that. I'm guessing Florida doesn't. And lobbyists were able to, obviously they don't. Their state senate met. And somebody talked to these state senators to try to get them to stop this.
There you go. All right, finally, last news topic. Ohio State wide receiver Jameson Williams announced over the weekend that he is transferring out of Ohio State. Obviously, that wide receiver room is loaded. And, former four-star prospect, played in every game for the Buckeyes the last 2 seasons, caught 9 passes for 154 yards, 2 touchdowns in 8 games last year. Not a ton of production, but super fast, speedy, set a record in the 300-meter hurdles in high school, beat Ezekiel Elliott's record in high school, and he is now transferring to Alabama, awesome. He announced, which is...
That's good. They needed a break.
Not what I expected.
They needed a break.
It very much so.
Coming off the best recruiting class in the history of any sport in the world.
Alabama needs experienced wide receivers.
They need that.
Junior wide receiver John Mechie is the only returning receiver who made more than 3 starts last season.
I don't think you know what the word need means.
Started 11 games, caught 55 passes for 916 yards and 6 touchdowns. That was Mechie.
No. Kansas needs wide receivers with experience.
I was shocked that you go to, you leave a wide receiver room that is chock full of talent because maybe you don't feel like you can get on the field, and you're going to go to Alabama, who has a bunch of young talent, but maybe you feel like because you're experienced.
No, Alabama beat our brains in, and so I'm going to go get a ring.
That might be.
If I don't get to play, well, I wasn't going to play here either. These guys are better than me. If these guys are better than me, at least I'm going to win a championship.
That's a valid point. That is a valid point. I mean, they got a Big Ten title last year. I mean, Anyway, let's move on. Let's do our NFL draft recap. We're going to look at this from the college angle, and there's a lot to break down on this. Now, I'm not going to go through all these numbers that I've got here.
A lot.
But I've got them just so that we can, in case something pops up,
gotcha.
Right? SEC broke their own record of most draft picks. It wasn't from last season. They had 64 in the 2019 draft. In the 2020 draft, they had 63. 65 players drafted this season out of the SEC. And to put that into perspective, this is since 2007.
Yep.
That's how many years in a row the SEC has had the most draft picks. It just continues to grow. The Big Ten has 44 draft picks this year. The ACC 42, the Pac-12 28, the Big 12 22, and then the AAC right there behind them with 19. The Independents 15. Got to include them. Notre Dame had 9.
I was just about to say, if you take the 15 from Notre Dame and put it with the ACC, they're close.
Very, very, very close.
They're close.
Yeah, if you include that.
Sorry,
so
Notre Dame doesn't have 15. The 9 from Notre Dame.
9
from
Notre Dame.
You don't get BYU's, too.
Yeah, toss that into the ACC, you would have 51. You'd still be 14 short of the SEC.
But
with one more team. But even still, I mean, it is what it is. A lot of, surprising names on this list. Of course, last week, I listed off as the teams that I thought could greatly benefit from this. I had Kentucky, I had Pittsburgh, I had Stanford. Stanford ended up with 5. Pitt had 6. Kentucky had 6. Those were all really, really good. Other surprising ones, I mean, there weren't a lot. LSU had 7. Florida had 8. Penn State had 6.
Everybody from the SEC got somebody.
Yes.
Last year, a couple of teams got blanked.
But this year, everybody
they didn't get blanked.
Everybody had 1.
Everybody got somebody in the party.
And so Vandy and Arkansas both had 1. Tennessee, Ole Miss, Mississippi State all had 2. A&M, South Carolina, and Auburn all had 4. And then Missouri had 5. Yeah. I was a little bit shocked with that.
Yeah, I was shocked too, but they did well.
The FCS had 5 draft picks this year. Had 2 from North Dakota State, 2 from Northern Iowa, but big hog mileage. Of course, that kind of makes sense.
We talked about that a little bit on another show.
Central Arkansas.
Northern Iowa.
Yeah, Northern Iowa, some big old boys. Who faced the most NFL draft picks last season? And that would be Georgia. So this was during the regular season. Obviously, you're not going to count playoffs, but this is getting to the playoffs. Georgia faced 43 draft picks. Alabama faced 42. Texas A&M 41. Obviously, SEC driven. Kind of makes sense. Clemson 34. And Notre Dame had 32. Now we kind of drop off a little bit. Oklahoma, who everybody claimed should have been up there in the playoff talk. Oh, if this thing expands, like they would have gone further, etc. Oklahoma played 17 NFL draft picks last year. Cincinnati played 13, and then I figured you would love this one. Ohio State in their regular season last year, before the Big Ten title game, before all that kind of mess, they played 9 draft picks in their regular season. Big Ten was not, now obviously, had they played Michigan, that number would have almost doubled.
I was just about to say, would it have doubled? Did Michigan have that many?
Michigan had 8.
Okay, so it would almost double then.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Michigan had 8. So had they played Michigan, that number would have been way up there with Oklahoma. But yeah, as of right now, I mean, they played 6 regular season games. They only played 9 NFL draft picks. Kind of crazy. Notable undrafted players. We'll roll through some of these. These are guys that I thought would get drafted and didn't for whatever reason. Now, we'll talk about some of these.
Some of them we disagree with, but that's fine.
Jamie Newman?
No, number one off the bat. I have no idea why he would have gotten drafted.
And so he was a top 10 PFF quarterback the 2 seasons that he actually played at Wake Forest. He was expected to go, first, second, third round when he came to Georgia, and then he opted out and did not get drafted at all. It wasn't anything to do with medicals, from what I understand. Nope. It was just he opted to sit out. There was not enough tape on him against great defenses.
That's it. The tape on him, you look great at Wake Forest for 2 years.
Yeah, and that's it. He signed with the Eagles, so obviously he will have a chance there. Yeah. But that was surprising. Dylan Moses, Alabama linebacker, signed with the Jaguars. He was a former 5-star 2 years ago. After the 2019 season, there was talk of him going ahead and leaving. He had like a second-round draft grade. He came back to try and bump himself into the first round. There are medical issues here. He's going to start on the NFI list in the NFL. But even with the medical issues, he played himself out of any kind of real money with the way that he played last season. Now, a lot of it could have been the fact that he was playing hurt, coming back off that ACL injury. Well, 2 ACL injuries.
I was just about to say, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of an issue. But, that was not good. Marvin Wilson signed with the Browns. That was a defensive tackle from Florida State. He was a former 5-star. And all the reports were he was a first-round grade, but he was coming back to Florida State to play for Mike Norvell and da-da-da. If this guy had a first-round grade, the only thing that you can look at is, because I think if it's just the fact that he was not very productive last year and he dealt with some injuries, only played in like 5 games or 4 games or whatever it was, you would take a flyer on him because he had a first-round grade before that, and you think, oh, well, this new coaching staff, COVID, whatever else, like, obviously that's not who we're going to get. We're going to get this guy.
That's right.
There was also the kind of player uprising that he started. And you and I have talked about this. We talked about this last year on our show, on our whatever, and discussed the idea that it might hurt some of these guys that are coming out and speaking out against their coaches in public and whatnot. And then this was a really rough time in the country.
That's right.
Politically and whatnot, when he came out and called Mike Norvell a liar.
Yep.
And, said that we're not going to practice.
In the NFL, and this isn't just the NFL, this is the professional world across the board. If you have a problem with your, person in charge, the person you direct to, it is expected of you to go to that person.
Yes, not air it out on social media.
Or at least go to the person above them. But keep it in-house and give the company or that individual the opportunity to make whatever wrong right.
Yes.
To immediately, because there's another guy that fell a lot, Chuba Hubbard. He got drafted.
Yep.
But Chuba fell a lot, did the exact same thing. And those were the 2 guys that we kind of questioned, whoa, your production might be amazing. And in the NFL, it's a meritocracy. If they think you're great, they're going to take their chance on you, even if they think you you might be a loose cannon. But there is a world that we live in where these people are still employers, and the NFL deals with a lot of ugliness.
Yes.
And
a lot of egos.
And they want to keep it in-house. Not just egos. I mean, problems, mistakes, whatever, all kinds of issues. But they want to at least be able to control the narratives, know when something ugly is going to come out, be able to explain it, or at least have like some notice that it's going to happen or whatever. The just firing off on social media about things is not what these teams want. They're not trying to.
Upon.
We don't live in a world anymore where they want them to shut up and play ball. They just want to make sure if you have a problem with somebody you work with, you allow the organization the opportunity to fix it.
Yes.
And I think that does hurt them.
I think so as well. There were some other ones. Kenny Yeboah, tight end at Ole Miss.
I was shocked. Now, he's the one I was shocked did not get drafted.
Signed with the Jets. I think he's going to be great with the Jets because Elijah Moore.
The problem is the game is going more tight end centric. If you're an ultra athletic tight end, now he's not Kyle Pitts, but he's a really good pass catching tight end.
Productive.
That's the direction of football, man.
Yes.
It's these big guys because linebackers can't guard them and DBs are too small to stop them from catching the football. So DBs can cover them, but they can't stop them from catching it. They just tackle them after they've caught it, which means you're getting the first down most of the times. I have no idea why this guy didn't get drafted.
Yeah, that made no sense to me.
Throw a flyer in the 6th, 7th round.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Cost you nothing.
Shane Buechele, SMU quarterback, kind of surprised that he didn't go. I was surprised Sam Ehlinger went, but I was not surprised, or I was more surprised that Shane Buechele did not go. I mean, we'll see. He's with the Chiefs. Like, chance at maybe a backup role, something like that. Yeah. Trevon Grimes, Florida wide receiver. He signed with the Eagles. I thought somebody would take a flyer on him. Like, he was part of that three-headed monster.
But this was a wide receiver crazy heavy class.
Oh, it was.
If you just assume you weren't one of the top 20 wide receivers taken, everybody else behind them, you just can't foresee coming out if you're an organization.
Yeah.
And you can't just keep spending draft capital on them.
That's true.
Every team drafted a wide receiver somewhere. At some point in time, you got to stop drafting wide receivers.
Jarrett Patterson.
Yeah.
Buffalo running back that set all the crazy records, 408 yards
I love
rushing
where
in a
he
game.
landed. Him going to the football team is I think is a great signing.
He's a Ron Rivera guy.
He is a Ron Rivera guy.
Very much so. And then last one I put on this list, Tamorrion Terry, signed with the Seattle Seahawks, Florida State wide receiver. He was, 5-star, Mr. Do Everything, never had a quarterback that could get him the football. I thought somebody would take a flyer on him.
Florida State the last 3 years destroyed a lot of draft value for some elite level guys.
Yes, you're 100%
elite level
right.
Guys. So.
It's pretty crazy. Since 2010, Alabama has had 38 first-round picks. It's more first-round picks than these teams have total picks. Texas A&M and Washington both have 36 in that same time span, just overall draft picks. Oregon, 35, South Carolina, 35, Texas, 32.
Oh, we've been saying that about Texas, though.
How crazy is that?
No, I mean,
I saw that stat.
They haven't been good.
I know. It's just nuts to think about all the talent that they got on that roster, and they just couldn't get them to the league for whatever reason. Now, Texas did have more drafted this year, so that helps a little bit, but we'll see what Sark can do down there. And then finally, last note, Michigan State had 0 players selected in the NFL draft for the first time in 80 years. That should let you know how far it had fallen under D'Antonio. It's bad news. Bad news. All right, we talked about a series that we were going to do. We're not going to spend a long time on it, but we are going to discuss the playoff expansion options. We'll do 6 and 8 this week. Very brief, give you an idea, because we talked last week about the CFP committee discussing 63 different options.
I have no idea what that means.
It's all a bunch of mess, right? So there are other shows. Right. There are other shows that yes. There are other shows that talk about how it should be 4 and no more. Like the CFP should not expand, et cetera, et cetera. But here's the issue. Expansion, it's a societal thing at this point. Back when the BCS was created is when football went away from the regular season. It was no longer just about your regional rivalries. It was no longer about all of these things. It was about getting to that championship game so that somebody could claim a real, legit national championship, right? Because in the past, you could have multiple national champions. Didn't matter. Once you got to the BCS, then it became all about that. And when you did that, you want to talk about the regular season not mattering? 2001 Nebraska made the BCS title game after getting beat 62-36 in their finale against Colorado.
I remember that.
2003 Oklahoma made the BCS title game against LSU.
Yep.
You were at that game.
I was at that game.
They lost to Kansas State 35-7.
First time
in the Big 12 title game. How crazy is that? The 2004 season saw undefeated number 3 Auburn left out after beating 3 top 10 teams and number 15 Tennessee in the SEC championship game.
To let Oklahoma in again to get their ass whipped.
While number 2 Oklahoma only beat 3 top 25 teams, and number 1 USC only beat 2 top 15 teams. So once that can of worms was opened, there's no putting the top back on this thing. It was only ever going to continue to go up, and it moved to 4, and now it's going to move again. We are going to get expansion, and I think that it's good for the rest of the country. This is all that stuff that happened before, which made college football so great. This is a nationwide sport at this point. Yes. It's societal because of social media and the way that things are watched and everything else. It used to not matter, and now it matters immensely to get everybody a shot. I think that's the biggest thing here. The other part of this is the CFP, I think, is realizing they are going to end up dealing with some antitrust lawsuits eventually from the G5 if one of those teams cannot get into that playoff. Yeah. You had Cincinnati undefeated last season and still only finished number 8.
With a great resume.
Yes.
And they did not finish above teams that had just way
worse.
3
lost Florida was above them. Like, that's insane to think about. So let's talk about what the 6-team option would look like. And again, we're not going to spend long on it, but the 6-team option, the premise would be the top 2 seeds get buys, possibly on campus for 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5 matchups. The most amount of games that any team would play in this would be 16. That's 1 additional game for 2 teams. That's it. And that is if those teams make it to the championship game from that 3-4 game, right? And we've had 3 versus 1 and 4 versus 2 and all that kind of stuff before. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities. But the options here, you can have your top 6 CFP ranked teams, no automatic qualifiers. You can have 5 P5 automatic qualifiers and a wild card. You can have automatic qualifiers for top 10 ranked P5 champs. You can have 5 P5 automatic qualifiers and 1 G5 team that is the highest ranked, and they must be top 10, right? I think the best spot, if you're doing 6 teams, is just do the top 6 teams. I think. Now,
but the problem is what happens when you have teams like Florida ranked over an undefeated G5 school that actually played some people, by the way. This is not a team with no good wins. You also have a 2-loss Iowa State team that's over them, and one of their losses was to a G5 school that's underneath. These are the problems you're going to run into if you just do top 6. Here's the problem: I can't get behind this because there's 0 reason to do 6 when you should do 8.
Agreed.
There's no good reason at all to say 1 and 2 get a bye. There's no logic in the world that you can give me to tell me 1 and 2 should get a bye.
I think I could agree with you on that.
So
the examples from last season, by the way, Alabama and Clemson would have gotten byes. Ohio State would have hosted Oklahoma in Columbus. Notre Dame would have hosted Texas A&M in South Bend. You can reseed after each round. You can do the 3 versus 6 winner plays number 2 or whatever you want to do.
That's fine.
So there's a lot of different options, obviously, and that's how you would end up getting 263, by the way, just looking at all those different ways. Now, let's look at the 8-team playoff and the way that you would actually go about that. And I think that this is the most likely version. The premise is there's no buys. Yeah. And more than likely you would do on campus, and I'm a fan of that.
I am too.
So
I'm okay with that.
I think it's better for the 1 seed to host the 8 seed and make it more of a college feel. I'm totally good with that.
The only reason you don't do the home field is if you're trying to still pander to the bowls.
Right.
If you're trying to still get these big bowl games a big game.
I think the on-campus into those games or into the bowls.
Well, because then you have the exact same setup we've got now. If
Exactly.
You do that. But if you could just fit 2 more bowls in, which the colleges love.
I mean, it'd be 4 bowls at that point because it's 4 games. Or sorry,
no, it'd be 2 more bowls. It'd just be 2 more.
Yeah,
because once you get past this round, you have what you already have, the best 4 teams.
That's a good point.
So
that's a good point. So the options are the top 8 CFP ranked teams, no automatic qualifiers. Probably okay with that. The way that they'll likely do it: 5 Power 5 automatic qualifiers, 3 wild cards. You've got your automatic qualifiers for top 10 ranked P5 conference champs and a top 10 G5 champ, and then 2 wild cards. And then your 5 P5 automatic qualifiers, 1 G5 must be top 10, and 2 wild cards. I think that last one there is probably the way that they'll end up doing it.
Well, that protects against your 3-loss Northwestern beats undefeated Ohio State for the Big Ten title game. And we don't want to send 3-loss Northwestern up there with 3 non-conference losses.
Exactly.
We want to send Ohio State, so we get to do that.
That way you at least make the regular season at least somewhat meaningful.
Yeah. I agree with that, by the way.
I think
as much as I hate it, because I think conferences are just going to funnel everything to whatever their big dog is at the time.
Yeah.
To benefit them, and they're going to hurt their own conference to try to help somebody else. I don't see a better way, because you don't want to see, a 3 or 4 loss,
Wisconsin
or even, God, I don't know. I'm trying to pull somebody out of the hat, but like Washington. Let's say Washington's got 3 losses and they beat an undefeated USC. Like, we don't want to see them get into the playoff. We want to see the undefeated team.
Yeah.
So I get it. Now, it's simple to say, don't lose to Washington and you can go.
And you can go in. Yeah, it's easier said than done.
Anyway.
But those games you want all of the games to matter. But at that point, if you set it up in a championship situation like that, the other games before that Washington lost aren't going to matter. So then your regular season is completely pointless. Yeah. With this, I think it still means something. So the example from last season, if we're just using the top 8, no automatic qualifiers, you'd have number 8 Cincinnati in Tuscaloosa against Alabama, number 5 Texas A&M at Notre Dame, number 7 Florida heading to Clemson, South Carolina, and then number 6 Oklahoma at number 3 Ohio State. Yep. We'll talk about 10, 12, and 16 next week. Not going to spend a long time. Obviously, we spent 5 minutes on this, which is probably more than what it deserves, but at least you have an idea of what we are looking at on it. So it's going to be interesting. I am pumped about it, and I mean, who knows what they're going to end up doing, but I will guarantee you this. Within 2 years, this thing will be changed.
I think so.
It will be changed, and it's for the better.
I do think you're right. I think they're going to jump to 8.
Yes, I think 8 is like there's the 6 idea.
And it's going to be hard. Here's the problem. It's going to be really hard to ever get bigger than 8. While you and I are both finally got you on board that 16 train.
Yep.
I love it. I think it's perfect. I think it is perfect. Once we go to 8, we'll never get any bigger.
I agree.
We'll never be able to sell. We need more.
Yeah.
And that's it's the only reason I don't like 8 is because if they give us 8, we're done.
Yeah. That's it. That's the whole
All
thing.
other doors are closing, and it will stay 8, and I will just have to deal with that.
Now, you are correct about that. Let's talk some FCS playoffs. Round 2 quarterfinals notes. Look, I did not keep up with underdogs and favorites. We only had a few games this week.
Good games, though.
Notes. Very good games. North Dakota State was expected to beat Sam Houston on the road.
Yeah, that was the upset.
Sam Houston moved to 15-0 in the FCS playoffs at home. The closing line was North Dakota State -3, and Sam Houston ended up winning this bad boy by 4, 24-20. The total was 45.5, finished at 44.
I was just about to say.
Yep. We were all over that. So Sam Houston, like, they handled North Dakota State in this game. They did not allow them to run up and down the field. They forced turnovers. Their only issue was they gave up turnovers, and North Dakota State scored on them, like kicking turnovers. It was really strange. So it was a hell of a game.
Yep.
Cam Mitchell looked like a deer in headlights against that defense. Like Miller, I think it was, right? Maybe it was Mitchell. I can't remember the guy's name.
For North Dakota State?
Yeah, Cam Miller.
Yeah, the rookie? I mean, the freshman. Yeah, yes. Cam Miller.
That's it, Cam Miller. quarterback Eric Schmid for Sam Houston was pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. Sam Houston looked good in this game. And so, of course, we continue on. Let's talk about the Delaware Blue Hens and the Jacksonville State Gamecocks.
This was the one that scared me.
Jacksonville State was favored by 3. They were at home. The total was 43, and Delaware won 20-14.
Jacksonville State could not move the football.
Well, here's why they could not move the football. Zion Webb was knocked out of the game in the first quarter.
Yeah.
The quarterback. So, yeah, once that happened, there was nothing Jacksonville State could do. That was effectively moving to their third-string quarterback because, remember, their other quarterback got hurt in the fall, and then Zion Webb took over and played really well all season, obviously. But
Delaware scored. It's weird. Delaware scored all their points early with him in the game, and then they got 14 then, and then it's like they were just like, don't blow the lead.
Yeah, defense held on.
This was just the definition of sit on the lead. Kicked a field goal in the third quarter, kicked a field goal in the fourth quarter, and get out.
The CAA automatic qualifier had a 16-minute and 50-second advantage in time of possession after limiting Jacksonville State to 1 of 12 on third down conversion attempts. That's 100% what they did.
Sit on it.
100% what they did. They scored touchdowns on the first 2 drives of the game.
Bam, bam.
And that was it. That was all she wrote.
Just said, don't move the football anymore.
Jacksonville State was held to 200 yards, which was half the Gamecock season average.
That's rough.
Third fewest in the John Grass era since 2014. So it was pretty nuts. Pretty nuts. North Dakota went to James Madison, and the analytics had this one right on the dot. Man,
I was about to say this number. This was a fun game,
It should have been a pick'em, at least according to the analytics. Closing line was James Madison -3, total of 52. Ended up James Madison won by 13 at 34-21, and it went
55.
over the 52. So
barely, but got there.
They advanced to the semifinals for the 4th time in the last 5 seasons, getting big offensive performances from quarterback Cole Johnson, who was 14 of 17 for 251 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their running back, Percy Ajayi Obesi.
I'm so glad you do these
I was listening to Matt Berry, and those guys called this game, and I was like, am I going to be able to get it? Maybe I did. But
you said that well.
27 carries for 128 yards, 2 touchdowns. Wide receiver Antoine Wells had 7 receptions for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns. They were comparing this man to Julio Jones in this game. And the reason they were, Curt Cignetti is the head coach at James Madison, and he was the wide receivers coach at Alabama under Nick Saban for his first 2 seasons there, and then took over James Madison, et cetera. But Cignetti was comparing him to Julio Jones because of his work ethic. He said, athletically, no, they don't make him like Julio. But as far as his work ethic, this kid wants to be the best, and he showed out in this game. So, this whole thing, like, JMU looks good right now, man. Like, you remember they were just kind of toying with people at the beginning of the season? They've been running teams off the field.
We've got 2 great matchups this weekend.
Oh, yes, we do. And then finally, South Dakota State. They handle Southern Illinois at home.
This was one of the most exciting games. This was the funnest game.
It was. The closing line ended up 16. I believe it opened at 14, right?
Yeah.
So opened at 14, crawled all the way up to 16. The total was 54, and I didn't put my stupid final here. What was it, 31-26?
Yeah, 31. It's a 5-point game.
Yep, 5-point game. So it ended up all right. South Dakota State was projected to win 31-17. Instead, they win 31-26, and Southern Illinois had a shot late.
Yeah.
It looked almost exactly like the Weber State game for them where they were driving down the field. I was like, they are not going to do this to me. But your Jackrabbits get it done.
I know,
They get it done. They didn't cover. But yeah, they scored 24 unanswered points. They were down 20-7 at one point.
So we got 2 good matchups. Delaware and my Jackrabbits. The 2 teams I love left in this thing are playing each other. I don't like that.
I am really excited.
I guess this means one of them is going to be in the championship. That's the positive way to look at it if I want to be positive and not me. Just always angry and negative.
Yeah. So let's start off our previews with James Madison.
Oh, okay.
At Sam Houston.
All right. So we're going to start with the late game.
We'll start with the late game. This is the one that's on ABC.
We normally go on time.
They were both supposed to be on ABC. And this one ended up being the ABC game, and the other one's on ESPN, I think because of the NBA. I don't know.
But they are both televised on real TV.
Yes. ESPN.
I'm happy.
And ABC.
I'm happy.
You know what? No, let's do the time. You're right. ESPN. Okay, we'll start off with that.
We always do the time. When you were going to do it backwards, I was like, all right, this feels uncomfortable. My anxiety started welling up, but I knew what I was
Delaware.
doing. So
we'll start with your Delaware Blue Hens at the South Dakota
Blue Hens.
State Jackrabbits.
This is a big number.
Yes, 7.5 is what it opened at. Total of 37. The analytics have this as South Dakota State winning 23-13. It's South Dakota State favored by 9.6 with a total of 36.55. So it's almost right exactly where the number says it should be. I think I wanted to say that there's value with South Dakota State. I think Delaware.
Don't think so. It is too many points. You get over a touchdown right now with my Blue Hens. I just think they can keep it close.
The team totals are Delaware 14.5 and South Dakota State 21.5.
Here's the other thing I think too. I think too much of this is going off of what Delaware did in the last game, and they didn't score at all after the first two drives. I think that was by design.
I think so too.
I don't know that it was because they couldn't score. And I think that's monkeying up the number.
Now, the Delaware game was 20-7 forever, and Jacksonville State scored with less than 2 minutes left in the game.
Yeah, they got a touchdown, and then Delaware got another field goal.
But Delaware was up basically two touchdowns.
You're talking about Delaware you're talking about in the fourth quarter, Delaware had scored their second field goal.
Yes, and that made it 20-7.
So they got it 20, yeah. Okay, I got you now.
So, and it was 20-7, and Jacksonville State scored to make it 20-14 with less than 2 minutes left.
Yeah, there's
in the
no
game.
time left. I mean, they basically that last touchdown was moot for anything.
Yeah. They were up by two scores.
It was the definition of a meaningless score.
They were up by 2 scores basically the entire game.
But I think they could have scored more if they weren't they just believed
the Jacksonville
State's not going to score on us enough. Let's just sit on this.
Yes. Blue Hen defense, real deal. The ability to grind games down to a stop. But South Dakota State can do that as well. That's why
I was looking at this total, 37.
37.
Oh,
37.
It's going to be brutal to watch 37. I didn't think they would ever have the balls to put a total in the mid-30s, Gary.
But these two teams,
and they did it. They did it. I came in here thinking, I'm going to play this under like I have every South Dakota State game, every Delaware game, because they don't have the balls to make a total that small.
And they certainly did this time.
I'll be damned if I didn't see 37. My first thought was, we going over that?
Yeah. No, South Dakota State.
But I think that might be fool's gold. I'm scared of the total. I'm not touching it.
I think that they.
You think we go over it?
I think it can go over.
I do
really
too.
think it can.
I really do. If I have to bet it, I'm taking the over. God, this is so funny. I make fun of the books for not having the balls to give me a small number. They finally do, and my first instinct is, well, it's going to go over this week.
Yep, got to go over.
But I don't know. I think they're making it really small because there's a world where this is a 13-7 ball game.
I think that Delaware and Jacksonville State score well into the 40s if Zion Webb does not get hurt.
You're probably right.
So
you're probably right on that.
And I think that South Dakota State is better than Jacksonville State. I think that they are going to be able to run on Delaware at least a little bit.
I do think you're right on all these things. I would go over as well. I like the points. I like the points a lot.
I've already bet Delaware plus 7.5.
It's more than a touchdown, man.
Yeah, I'm taking that one. So we're both riding Delaware plus 7.5, and we're both going over the 37 on that.
And now that's to cover. Okay, I will not be upset if the Jackrabbits win this thing.
Well, no, but I love this. I
love this South Dakota State team.
I could see something closer to like 24-21 South Dakota State.
Yeah. I really do like both. I've enjoyed watching both of these teams, and it's so funny when this whole thing started, Gary. I've never cared about the FCS at all.
And now you're knee deep in it.
But now we start covering it, and I'm thinking I'm going to pick a couple of teams that I like. Once fell in love with a girl from Delaware, so University of Delaware, not just Delaware, and I like the Jackrabbits because of their damn mascot, and they happen. This was before the season started. That's not true. I knew Delaware is really good at football. Okay,
well, yeah,
I knew they always make the playoffs. I know they're good. South Dakota State, not always. They're fine. I know enough to be dangerous. They both made it to the last game of the season, or one of them is going to make it to the last game of the season.
Indeed.
That makes me feel pretty good that I just arbitrarily picked two teams.
That one of them is going to be playing in the national.
If I used my brain, I'd have picked the Bob Petrino team, and that would have not worked out well for me.
No, they would have been swamped in the first game. Moving on to the second game here, and we'll try and make this quick so we can get out of here. James Madison, 7-0 at Sam Houston, and the Bearcats with the K, of course, who you are not a fan of.
Nope, I don't like it.
We are going to close it out. And Sam Houston projected 25-23.
It's a pick'em right now.
It's basically it's 1.5. It's a pick'em right now.
It's a pick'em. Well, one book has them at 1.5. All 3 other books have them at a pick'em.
I took James Madison to cover.
I think they're going to win. So if I have to pick one, I would pick James Madison. We haven't done well betting against Sam Houston State.
No, we haven't.
Not wise, but I'm going to do it one more time.
James Madison was number 1 for a reason. I think they can get their offense going in this spot.
What do you think of the total? This is the biggest total we've seen in a while.
46.5. The analytics say it should be 47.66.
I would say it's 47 at all 3 books, and the one book has 46.5.
Team totals: James Madison 23, Sam Houston 24.
Golly,
I'm going to go over James Madison's team total.
Okay, James Madison's team total, but you wouldn't go over the game total?
Yeah, I probably would, actually.
I think I would too, but I hate that. I kind of hate that I like both the overs.
All right, so James Madison.
I don't like that at all.
And the over. Hey, we are hanging it out there, man. We unzipping and just letting it fly. Let's go. Let's go. All right, let's get out of here. You guys have been fantastic. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, jump into the comment section. We want to hear your thoughts on these games for this weekend. Obviously, we are in the Final Four of the FCS. Going to be a good weekend. We are pumped about it. And we want to hear what you think about the topics for the show. Let us know what you want us to talk about. You can always hit us up on Twitter. I am at Gary WCE.
I'm at Crispy Giannini.
And make sure you go to sbrpicks.com/NCAAF and hit subscribe on the show. That would certainly help. Hit the like button, subscribe. Is there anything else I need to hit?
That's it.
That is it. All right. You guys have been great. For sportsbookreview.com, I'm Gary.
And I'm Chris.
And we will see you again next week.